All right. The Blair Witch Project. Man, this is like, I think this might be the definition of a one-hit wonder.
It's up there.
It's up. Yeah, definitely up there. All right, Jude, take it away. What is the synopsis for the Blair Witch Project?
First I'm going to give you the budget.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So,
oh my God, this is fascinating. What is the budget?
1999, The Blair Witch Project, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour, 21 minutes.
21 minutes.
The budget for this was $60,000.
$60,000.
What do you think this brought into the box office?
Oh God, it was a huge hit.
It was a hit.
It made massive amounts of money, but I have no idea what. I don't know. I'm going to say
in the dark.
$100 million.
Thomas?
That sounds like so much, but possible. I'm gonna $50 million.
$248 million.
Holy shit!
So this movie actually
got that money.
This movie actually holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the top box office ratio, budget to profit. Record.
Almost $300 million for a $60,000 budget.
For every dollar they spent on this movie, they made $10,931.
I hope they went back and repaid those three people.
That's what I'm wondering. Matt, do you know who received that money?
The studio that released it.
What does that mean?
The studio, what's their take, though?
So no one who made that movie made any money?
I don't think so.
No, they did. They did.
I
think that's one of the reasons they haven't done anything since. They
banked it and bound. Yeah, I would have done the same thing.
Actors in it? You think they got their just
like,
desserts?
That's what I'm wondering.
Actors get paid for doing the work, and then sometimes in the contract they'll put in like, I want 1% of the gross box office return. Like sometimes they do that, but that's not in every contract.
Yeah, so this was one of those movies where
the merchandising rights.
They premiered it at the Sundance Film Festival after doing like kind of like a viral marketing campaign to drum up buzz for it, and it got bought at the festival for like $1.something million. And then the studio that bought it pumped in like $700,000, something like that, for like post-production and re-editing and mastering. In fact, the movie looked too good originally, so like they had to grain it up and make it look like a little bit dirtier. And so like this movie, even though like it was shot and originally made for $60,000, I think like the budget's closer to like $1 million when
after marketing and everything, right? Yeah.
Well, not just
the marketing
was amazing.
Yeah, not just the marketing though. Like I think the marketing's something separate, but just to like finish the film, get it ready for like a wide release and stuff like that. So, but yeah, this is one of those movies where the marketing for the film is actually better than the film itself.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
And we're going to get into that.
And no one, this had never been done before, and people didn't know that this really wasn't real.
I was gonna,
People thought this was real.
Yeah, I saw that shit in the theaters.
Yeah,
and it was uncomfortable to watch. Yeah.
You ready for the synopsis?
Yeah, go for it, because there's something I want to talk about. But go ahead.
Okay.
Apparently, we're all jazzed up to talk about this movie.
Who knew? It's better to talk about than it is to watch. But let me tell you what it's about. 3 white people went out into the woods to fuck with a murder witch and were never seen again. Please discuss.
I will say, okay, I got
a Geico commercial.
I gotta reel back.
No, let's hide in the chainsaws.
Oh God! Yes, yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. Let's go towards the weird, creepy noise. Okay, so I saw this movie in the theaters, 1999, whatever.
What? How old were you?
I was, 11?
6?
11 or 12, something like that.
11 or 12, yeah. All right.
Watching rated R movies, for shame.
I'm a movie buff. Anyway, so I remember seeing this movie when it first came out, and I was, like you said, it was uncomfortable to watch, because it felt real and weird and creepy, and I grew up in, like, the New England woods area, so that added another element of creepiness to it. And I had never seen it since.
Yeah,
it was one of those things. I was just one of those things that you're like, oh yeah, I saw the Blair Witch Project. I don't need to watch it again. And rewatching it, it does not hold up. It's frustratingly bad.
Yeah,
like the things that I used to think were cool about it was like, oh, the shaky cam and the found footage stuff. Like now it's just frustrating because I can't fucking see what's happening. And I'm like,
well, there's little to no story.
Yeah, they're just lost, and they're like ad-libbing, being frustrated and lost. Yeah, and it comes off kind of dumb. And I was really frustrated with the one dude. I can't remember. I think it was like Mark or something. It was the camera guy, Mike. He was just like for no reason, just started screaming into the woods.
Fucking bullshit! Mike, chill.
Just relax, Mike.
Don't fucking tell me to relax!
And I'm like, why are you screaming, dude?
But
like,
okay. You're looking at it through the lens of I've seen Paranormal Activity and I've seen all these other things that are just like it. Remember the first time you saw it? It's the we don't know what's going on aspect that made it so crazy and so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The problem is we've seen this shit again, and we've seen it like 20 times since then, and.
I think this might have been my second watch.
No, that's what I mean. But I mean, we've seen other things very similar, right?
Yeah.
Found footage shit. I mean, VHS was a better adaptation than this would ever be, right? VHS was very creepy. This was
You're talking about the movie VHS.
Yeah, not like the actual plastic cassette tape. Yeah. No, I mean like, the actual movie VHS.
Yeah, there's a couple other movies that use this very similar, the found footage thing is Quarantine is like a zombie movie that takes place. That was decent.
Better. Yeah.
And then
the Blackwell Ghosts. Movies.
Oh, that's so stupid. I don't understand why you love that
I love that series.
I actually
because no one's ever heard of it and only Matt has.
I actually like the first Cloverfield.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
So I read something years ago about the making of this, and Kadish can probably tell me if it's accurate or bullshit. But while they were filming this, the three actors in this didn't know the story. They would get notes from like the writer or the director or something, and that would be like, so you actually did kick, you got the map, you stole the map, and then you kicked it, and now you're going to reveal it and react. And then like he would like slip somebody else a note that would be like something else that we don't know is coming, and the other ones didn't know also, so they all had to kind of react to it just something based on like a little note. Did you read that too or hear that?
So the way that this movie was shot was basically they had like a film crew with the two directors and like 3 or 4 of their assistants, not far away from the actors, and the actors were given basically the cameras, and they were told a scenario. They before they start shooting, they went over like a 35-page outline of like, here's how the movie's going to go, but the actors didn't know the details of what was going to happen as they were trekking through the woods. And so like the actors would be given like directions of like, okay, here's where you need to get to. And so like they would just film themselves like hiking through the woods. And then once they got to the area they were supposed to go to for the day, there would be like a drop box almost like something there that they would open up, and it would have instructions for each one of them on like what their ad-lib scenario for that night was going to be. And so like there was no lines of dialogue that they had to memorize. They were all just kind of like ad-libbing stuff as it went. And it was kind of funny because the actors' real names are the names of their characters in this movie. Mm-hmm. And that was a decision made because they were like, it'd just be easier during improv because like we don't have to, like, if we hear our own names, we're going to be reacting to it and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why they're named after like the actual actors who went into the woods. And because of that, like their families got like condolences cards when the marketing started happening.
God.
Yeah.
Like Heather's mother got calls from their neighbors. It's like, we just heard about Heather. Oh my God, are you okay?
So I'm really curious to know this because I heard a rumor that the FBI actually got involved in investigating the disappearance of these people because,
that sounds about right.
Because they saw the marketing and they saw this movie and they legitimately thought it was found footage.
So I have to talk a little bit about the marketing of this movie. So the first of all, this movie, it was the first found footage film that actually gained like kind of like wide acceptance.
And I think it was the first movie that had ever been like marketed on the like internet.
So basically, here's what happened. Okay. Right. So
on the AOL.
my first year of film school, I saw a IFC, Independent Film Channel, kind of like promotional thing on this movie, and it was presented as like the real thing, like these filmmakers went into the woods, they disappeared, a year later their footage was found. And originally this movie was actually closer to 3 hours long. And the reason it was 3 hours long was because the filmmakers had actually shot a lot of stuff that would cut back to like after the footage was found and like the police searching for these people and like the family reactions and stuff like that. And they decided ultimately to cut all that stuff out of the finished film because they just wanted to focus on like the cool, scary stuff. But I
think that was the right choice.
But they took that stuff and basically used it for the marketing materials as like actual like news footage and like this is the search that happened and stuff like that. And they were the first movies to actually create a website that had all this stuff on there to make it
remember that.
Make it look like it was like a real website that was dedicated to the search for these filmmakers.
Genius, absolute genius.
And because of that, and they also had the actors under like a strict kind of like NDA where like they weren't allowed to like make public appearances and all this other stuff. And so in the build up to the film's premiere, there was a lot of buzz that this was like a legit documentary as opposed to like an actual like fictional movie. And it wasn't until it got bought and had wide release that it came out and it's like, okay, like this is a fictional story. Like all this stuff isn't real. But the marketing campaign leading up to this, it used viral strategies. Like I remember, I think it was either at the Cannes Film Festival or the Sundance Film Festival, they put up missing persons signs with like the actors' faces on it.
God
and,
damn.
And so like they got all this coverage about like, you know, like this is the footage that was found, and they used like all that footage to show like the search and all that stuff. And so by the time this movie had come out, a lot of people had just kind of like heard about this. It's like, oh, I remember hearing about that. Like this is real. Like we have to go see this. And that was one of the reasons why it blew up so much, is because like they'd spent like a year or two just kind of like priming the pump for the viral marketing, so that by the time it came out in theaters, everyone was like so curious about this.
Yeah, it's a genius marketing, absolute genius.
Yeah, I mean $60,000 budget with like $250 million return. I mean,
so crazy.
Crazy.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one we talked about, like, yeah, you watched this the first time, you've never seen it before, and you're kind of sold on this idea that it was real or whatever.
Oh, they got us all.
It's fascinating. It's a fascinating movie, and I'm along for the ride. On the second watch, I just became frustrated.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
I was like, oh,
Jesus.
God, can we just, we get it. You're lost.
It's kind of a bore.
Yeah, it's real boring. And I was really frustrated because for whatever reason, the first time I had watched it, I had thought, if you would have asked me a week ago, is there actually a witch in the Blair Witch Project? I would have said yes. I would have been like, I fucking remember seeing something like a shadow or like a figure fucking with these people like in the background in one of the shots or whatever, or especially at the house. Nothing.
There's voices.
There's voices. That's it.
Well, there's a scene where they're like running from the camp, and you hear Heather yelling like, "What is that? What the hell is that?" And there was an actor there who was like a member of the crew who was like dressed up as the witch, and they were supposed to see him, but Mike, the guy who was like holding the camera, like forgot to pan over and show it. And so like they didn't have the shot when they were editing. They're like, well, okay, this is what we got to work with. So you never actually see any witchy stuff.
Yeah, I thought
nothing witchy.
I for sure thought like once they got into the house in the middle of the woods that there was like somebody standing in a corner somewhere.
There was,
but it was Mike. It was Mike. It was the camera guy.
We don't know that.
It was obviously him. He was wearing a stupid little beanie.
Yeah.
But it was funny, like watching this now, because I'm older now and I go out. You guys know I'm an outdoors person. I go camping and stuff like that. Like watching these idiots get lost in the woods, and I'm like, it's not that hard to get out of the woods, guys.
I said the same thing the whole time. I'm like, the sun freaking sets in the west.
Just follow that.
Just figure it out, man.
It's the curse.
She's all like, we're going north. Yeah, that's the only thing you could say. Like, well, technically it's a paranormal, and they were confused because the sun wasn't in the right spot and things were different. Their compasses weren't working. Like you could headcanon that shit out, but to me, I was just getting frustrated with how freaking illiterate these people were with camping.
It is annoying. Yes.
It's very annoying.
Yeah, I mean, Matt made the point when we were watching it that in the following sequels, because there were 2 sequels to this movie, right?
Yeah.
2.
I've never seen any of them.
I never seen them either, but apparently they do make reference to the witch's circle and how they were like trapped by magic.
Okay.
Didn't you watch the sequel last night, babe?
I did. Well, I watched the third movie, which is called Blair Witch. So like the second one is the Blair Witch Project Book of Shadows, I think. Then the second one's just called Blair Witch, or the third one. And if you just ignore the second one because it was so bad, the third movie is actually like pretty decent, and it expands upon the mythology of this movie. And basically, it's Heather's brother who's grown up. It's like however many years later. And there's a piece of footage uploaded to YouTube from someone who was in the woods, and he found like a tape that was buried. And Heather's brother thinks that he sees Heather in the reflection of a mirror in the murder house at the end of the first one.
Murder house.
And so like he gets his friends together to go out to meet this person who found the footage. And his girlfriend's kind of like this filmmaker. And so she has like all this stuff that she's going to document, like him searching for his sister with. And so like they go out and they meet this guy and his girlfriend who found the footage, and they take him out into the woods. And as they go along, the same thing happens where basically like they try to leave the woods, but they just end up back at their original campsite. And then all of a sudden, they wake up after a night's sleep and it's like 2:00 in the afternoon. They're like, it should be like 7 a.m. And so like time starts getting weird and all this other stuff. And it really kind of lays out in a lot more of a kind of like definitive way, like what the rules are that's happening. And we get to see like the Blair Witch and like all this other stuff.
Huh.
Cool.
I might have seen that because that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah. After you rattled all that off, I honestly might have seen that movie.
I've never seen it, but
I don't remember it. I don't really remember it, but yeah. I mean, okay. All that being said, this movie doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah,
it's mysterious.
Because once they go out there, everything just kind of goes haywire, and nothing makes sense. Which is the point.
It was barely enjoyable.
Barely
watching it the second time.
Yeah,
the truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
The people who are actually from Burkittsville, Maryland, hated this movie.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because
Burkittsville?
Yeah, because they had so many like freaking like tourists coming out there and like trying to like investigate whether the movie was real or make their own version of it.
Keep your big city dollars out of mine.
They actually they had their town sign stolen like 3 times as like
the one from the movie.
Yeah.
I'd steal that shit.
Souvenirs.
That's a cool ass souvenir.
Yeah.
Somebody, I forget
I'm
who
in
it was.
Burkittsville.
One of my friends does like spooky tours, like goes places that like spooky movies have been made and like goes on tours and stuff.
Right.
And I forget who it was, but they said that they went to this town and everyone was so mean.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, we're not showing you. No, we're not doing it. Just
even
leave.
20 years later. Wow, that's
Where's
crazy.
the crazy old religious lady? I want to get a picture with her.
Right?
You know that lady, so like the one who like survived the meeting with like the Blair Witch,
Super skinny.
The sunken eyes and stuff like that. So it was funny because like the directors, before they started filming, they put out a post in like the local papers looking for like production assistants, people at the local college who would like come out and help them out. And they only got
Did
one.
it say, "Do you look creepy? We'd love to talk to you."
No, they were just looking for
open casting for weirdos.
Yeah, they were just looking for someone to like help them out with the production who was like local. And they only got one response, and it was from that lady who was like a college student.
Get out.
And so like she was like, when they saw like how like creepy she looked, they were like, we have to put her in the film. And so like that trailer that she lived in that we see her come out of, like that was that girl's actual house.
You called her a girl.
She looked like she was at least 48.
Yeah. They were like, we found the oldest college student on the planet.
Jeez.
She has progeria. She's actually 17 years old.
If you were to tell me like all that stuff that they recorded her saying about her being like a doctor, and she had like, if you were to say like, oh no, that was just some crazy person they found at a trailer park and they interviewed her for this movie, and
very
she just
believable,
ad-libbed the whole thing, I'd be like, yeah. That tracks.
Yeah,
well,
adds up.
A lot of the stuff in Burkittsville at the beginning was actually like reshoots after the film got picked up, because originally they didn't have like the fishermen or all that stuff to kind of like explain what the legend was. And so like a lot of people on a screening of the original cut were kind of like confused about the ending with like Mike standing in the corner and stuff like that.
By the way, I'm still confused about the ending.
And so basically they went back in and put in that stuff about like the serial killer and like all this other stuff in order to clarify the ending a little bit more. So a lot of that stuff that you see, like I think there's one guy with like a baseball cap on and he's like close up kind of talking about stuff like that was a reshoot. The woman with like the kid was like a reshoot and all this other stuff.
Oh my God, it was so creepy when the lady was talking about the Blair Witch and the kid was like, shh, stop. And she's like, I'm just telling him a funny story. And she's like, stop talking about it.
That kid was freaking out.
Yeah.
And then that kid picked its nose and ate it.
That kid ate that booger, and they put it right in the movie.
Oh yes.
Like that was a real booger eaten. And say what you will about the baby.
Like 30 today, and that's all he's ever done.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, you're that kid that ate
the booger in that one movie. Yeah.
I remember you.
Speaking of the booger.
Speaking of boogers,
the most
Revenge of the Nerds was great.
The most iconic shot in this movie is where Heather has like the camera up in her face, and she's like, I'm so scared.
Oh god, she's got snot
coming down her nose.
And the actress, like, so first of all, like all the actors were the ones who basically shot this movie. Like they were the ones who were operating the cameras. And Joshua, the guy who was supposed to operate the film camera, he's an actor. He didn't know how to operate a film camera, which is why most of the film footage is out of focus. But Heather, like when she was doing that scene, like they'd have like their campouts for the night. And she actually thought that she had it framed properly, like where like her whole face was in the frame. But it turns out that she had accidentally zoomed in a little bit too close, and so like that's why
that was a mistake.
That was a mistake.
Whoa!
And so like when they got into the editing room and this was all the footage they had, they were like, oh well, I guess it works.
That's the most iconic scene. Wow, that's crazy.
It does work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not supposed to look good. Right?
No, it's supposed to be like she's hiding basically under her blankets, and she has the camera like right there.
Like if it was like lit well and framed fantastic, and
different,
and she was pretty, and you're like, oh look, she's a pretty girl in this scene.
Yeah, she's gonna be all right.
She's got freaking snot coming out of her nose. I'm so scared. Right?
It adds to the reality. The reality they were going for, right?
Definitely.
And one of the funny things is that they hired 3 actors who basically were really good at improv in order to play the characters in this movie. And originally, Mike was supposed to be the one who disappeared later on in the film, because Mike was like kind of like the antagonist to Heather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Joshua was supposed to have like this like romance subplot where like he had the thing for Heather, and so he was following her out, into the woods and stuff like that. And it turns out that
I didn't get that. There was a romantic subplot in this movie.
Hold on, let me finish. so basically, the actor who played Joshua and the actress who played Heather hated each other. Like they argued constantly during like the shoot, because it was just them out in the woods, right? And so basically, like the filmmakers would have to step in occasionally and like calm them down, because like they'd be arguing. And a lot of it had to do with like Mike was in character, so he was against Heather, and then Joshua just didn't like the actress who played Heather, and so like he'd argue with her, and it looked like the two of them were ganging up on her in the footage. And so like they had to cut around a lot of like Joshua's stuff, and it got to the point where they're like, Mike's supposed to disappear, but like let's just get rid of Josh because he's being a pain in the ass. and when they came up and told Josh, it's like, hey, we're taking you out tonight, he's like, oh good, I can go to that music concert I've been wanting to go to. And so like he fucked off, and he was like, see you guys later. And the filmmakers were like, this actually worked out better because Mike and Heather were supposed to be antagonistic from the beginning, she's stuck with like the guy that doesn't like her, and so like it created some good tension towards the end of the movie. But I just thought it was funny that Joshua, who's like supposed to be like the love interest, him and the main actress just didn't get along, so they were like, we're scrapping that storyline.
Yeah, that was a good call.
I've had more fun talking about it than I did watching it for the second time, for sure. I have two moments that I thought were really well done, and I just want to highlight those. When they're walking into the woods and they start seeing the stick figures in the trees and shit, I was like, that's legit fucking cool. Mm-hmm. Like being somebody who grew up out in the woods and going camping and stuff like that, like if I were to see something like that, I'd be freaking out too. So that felt very real to me. I really enjoyed that part. And then once they got into the murder house, and they were climbing up the staircase, and there's like children's handprints of blood up the walls. That's the other part. I was like, dang, don't go in there. Yeah, just don't do that.
There's lots of places to go. You don't have to go in the murder house.
The murder house.
Well, what's funny is that so at a certain point they come into a clearing that has like these little cairns, like little rock mounds in it. And it's not until I think it's Joshua knocks one of them over.
That's when
that
the witch
supernatural stuff starts happening. Yeah. And so like
I didn't catch that.
You didn't catch that?
Yeah. Basically, the movie's saying like, okay, because they disturbed this one thing, the witch kind of
is now following them. Yeah.
And is going to get their revenge for disturbing like that cairn.
It's like, cause they were in this area and nothing was happening. And they're like, oh, we're not getting any footage. We're not seeing anything, whatever. And then that one dude, like as like an asshole, just like knocks over the pile of rocks. And then once that happens, that's when the witch starts messing with them, and it gets progressively worse every night. And then there was one scene where they were like, no fires, no flashlights, because every time we have a fire, they find us or whatever. So they don't have anything like that. And then that's one of the worst nights that they have. That's when they actually start jumping out of the tent, like running out in the black into the field or whatever.
And the actors didn't know night to night what was going to happen. Like they would get to their campsite, as planned.
They must have been so exhausted.
And so like basically like at these nights where like the production crew would run up and start banging on the tents, and like the actors were like legitimately like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff was just like ad-libbed and genuine reactions, because the filmmakers specifically kept the actors in the dark about what they were going to do. Like the sound of the children crying in the woods, it was like boom boxes, that they were playing like these sounds, and the actors would like wake up and be like, what the hell is that?
Hey man, I go camping a lot. I hear shit like that.
Dude, you hear a twig break in the woods. I start getting nervous.
I bought this giant ass freaking flashlight that has like a freaking I don't know, full circle, like it's like a football field. It's huge, super bright. I was out camping recently and exactly the thing. I heard something. Didn't know what it was.
Oh, it's out there.
Heard something.
Chupacabra.
Yeah. Out here, I'm terrified of the freaking lore behind the skinwalkers. Like that shit's scary as hell. Like they say your name or they scream or they do something weird.
Don't
like
go
that.
looking for it.
Don't go looking for it. So I'm always packing. I've always got my sidearm and I've always got my giant ass flashlight.
Squatching.
So I want to talk about the ending of this movie real quick.
Go for it.
Two things. So like Tom, you said you didn't understand the ending. Were you just being facetious, or is that like a legit thing that you didn't understand?
I don't understand what you want me to explain. There's a guy standing in a corner. Two people get knocked unconscious.
That was Mike.
The end. Okay, what am I to understand? How are you going to blow my mind? Go.
So basically, the legend, the town local legend, was that there was this guy who heard a voice of an old woman who told him to like murder children, and so like he'd kidnap 2 kids at a time. He'd make one stand in the corner while he killed the other one, and then he'd kill the kid that was standing in the corner.
I missed all that.
And then after he did like 30 child murders or something like that.
It was only like 7.
Or 7.
Not to say that that's not a lot of child murders. That's still too many child murders.
Well, after a certain number,
too many child murders.
He basically came out. He gave himself up to the police and said, like, I'm done now. The old woman who was telling me to do this has let me go. God. And so like that was like the local legend of like the serial killer. And so like at the end of the movie, when you see Mike standing in the corner, it's meant to kind of symbolize that like, okay, whoever the serial killer was is either, a ghost, or like this is the witch's MO where she makes someone stand in the corner as she kills the other person and then kills that person. Mm-hmm. And so like that was kind of like the connection there at the end. But there's this alternate theory that fans have come up with over the course of time.
Oh, this has got to be better.
Yeah. So basically this theory is that Joshua and Heather used to date, and, they broke up, and Joshua and Mike collaborated with one another to lure Heather out into the woods and murder her, and then cover it up by blaming it on a local legend. And so like that was like the thing that a lot of people who like this movie are like, okay, this is basically just like an elaborate murder plot by these 2 guys.
But neither of them survived.
Well, they disappeared.
Didn't they?
I mean, I guess you never see a body.
Dun, dun, dun.
The most out of Josh that you see is like a bloody rag and some teeth.
Could be anyone's teeth.
Did you catch that?
What, you can't get some teeth? I can get some teeth.
I get you some teeth.
Yeah, give me an hour. I'll get you some teeth, bro.
Did you catch that was presented to her as a gift in his shirt that he had been wearing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was this plaid shirt.
Yeah,
it was creepy. So it's weird. So we started off thinking about this as like a shitty movie, and then as we talk about it, we're all like, "Yeah, that was pretty freaking cool."
It's not still a shitty movie.
It's not shitty. It's just not rewatchable.
I saw this movie 5 times in the theater.
Oh, you would.
Of course.
God, you
Jesus
film
Christ.
nerd.
I was film nerding out. Yeah,
he had a beret on.
You look like Jamie Hyneman from the freaking Mythbusters.
Yeah,
I was like,
he said, "Well, actually," 17 times after it. Well, actually, what you didn't know was,
I saw this movie in the theater. I was like, I could make a movie like this.
Yeah,
like this is something that is totally doable. And in fact,
we did make a movie like this, like 2 hours ago in the kitchen on your phone.
The filmmakers who did this movie, they bought their camcorder, their Super 8 camcorder at a Circuit City. And after like 6 days of filming this movie, they brought it back for a full refund. It was like all dirty and like bad as shit. But they were so desperate for funds that they were like, we got to return this video camera.
That's hilarious. All right, let's do final thoughts. And can you rate this movie, Tom? Go ahead.
Can I write this movie?
Rate.
Oh,
can you rate it?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I saw it in the theater the first time, right? Mm-hmm. And it did leave a mark, right? I never watched it again because really you don't need to. You watch it once and you're good. That being said, it's been remade so many times in so many different ways that it kind of takes a lot away from the majesty of this thing and like the whole thing that they attempted. If I wanted to rate this before all the other kind of copycat styles came out, I'd rate it higher. If I had to rate it on what I watched the other day, it'd be like a 2.
Okay.
It wasn't very enjoyable. It's boring. You know, a nice campy soundtrack would really liven it up a little bit. Yeah, 2. It's not rewatchable. You watch it once, one and done, and you're good. If it's on at the background at a party you're at, that's probably the best way to watch it because you don't need to listen to a damn thing.
What kind of parties do you go to where they play Blair Witch Project in the background?
Cool ones.
Yeah. I could see this playing on the screen at like Millennium Fandom Bar.
Yeah, it's just playing in the background, and you'd be like, "Oh shit, it's Blair Witch." I remember that.
Yeah,
you don't need dialogue in this movie. It doesn't matter what they're saying.
No,
you can see the mini freakouts and the snot and the boogers. And you get it. You get it, man. I don't need to hear the lure of the child murderer, corner murder. It's creepy enough at the end that the guy's just staring in the corner, and then it just ends. Yeah. Right? It's creepy enough. That being said, you watch it once and you don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Okay. Jude, final thoughts. Give it a rating.
So this truly is a one-hit wonder. And the marketing was fantastic. And this had never been done before. So the first time you watch it, you're really blown away. And like everyone went to see this and was talking about it. Mm-hmm. So based on that experience, this was like top of the line. Like no one had ever seen anything like it before. Mm-hmm. But you know, however long later, 20 years later, at least
23 years later.
Yeah. The rewatchability is just not there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of boring once you know
the gimmick.
Once you know that it's not real, it's kind of boring. Yeah. And it's not a great rewatch. The sequel was a fucking mess. So I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle, and I'm just 2.5. Yeah. Witchy sticks.
Okay.
Witchy sticks.
Witchy sticks. All right, Kadish, who saw it 10 times in the theater, give this a rating.
Yeah, you know, even when I saw it all those times in the theater, I didn't think it was like a very good movie. But like I was so fascinated by it and the marketing around it that I went mostly for like the audience reaction to the film. But you know, it was kind of funny because like when we went to watch it again, you know, me, Jude, and Tom, we went over to Tom's place, and these two talked throughout the whole movie, and I couldn't really like follow it because like it was just them talking the entire time.
We were a couple of bottles in by then.
We were having fun, man.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to watch it again just to make sure like I didn't miss anything because it's been a few years since I've seen this movie. And then like last night before the podcast, I watched the sequel to it, the Blair Witch. And, you know, like I have to give this movie credit, not just for like, you know, the viral marketing that it kind of pioneered, but also the innovation with which these filmmakers, you know, made this film, like the whole, like give the actors stuff and make sure that they improvise and give them the scenarios and surprise them with stuff. And then, you know, they somehow assembled a movie out of this thing that went on to like, you know, like 1,000 times its budget type thing. And so like, on entertainment value, this movie is basically like 2 snot bubbles out of 5, but I'm going to give it another half star just for the innovation that was shown in this movie. So 2.5 snot bubbles.
That's fair.
It's fair. Yeah, it's fair.
I think it's so fair that I'm unfortunately going to have to mirror exactly what you just said. Like rewatchability is not there. Mm-hmm. It's not a rewatchable movie, but I have to give it credit for the mark that it left on like pop culture.
Yeah, it created a whole subgenre of horror movies.
Yeah, and there's not a single person out there that loves movies that's never heard of and or seen the Blair Witch Project. It's like a staple of like nerdom. Not even nerdom, just like movie buffs. Like everybody's seen Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have to give it a lot of credit for that. And as far as entertaining goes, if it's a first watch for you, you're going to be sucked into it, and it's going to be crazy, and it's going to be fun, and you're going to like allow yourself to believe that this actually happened.
Watch it alone
in the dark with like a freaking headphones on or some shit.
Don't watch it with friends and get drunk. It's not going to play. It's not going to play.
Yeah. I mean, if you like this movie, I'd highly recommend checking out the Blackwell Ghosts.
Here we go.
No one wants to watch that.
So 2.5 for me. All right, that's it for the Blair Witch Project. Comment below. When did you see it? Did you see it in theaters? Did you see it afterwards? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.